Rain hammered against the cabin roof, and the wind howled through the forest like it had a secret to share. Inside, the single dad wrapped his hands around a mug of steaming coffee, trying to ignore the tension in the air. He hadn't expected a weekend getaway to turn into this, a remote cabin, snow piling up outside, and the storm cutting off every path back to the road. Across the room, the CEO of a fast-growing tech company glanced at him with a mixture of concern and something he couldn't quite read. Their worlds couldn't have been more different. He was juggling daycare pickup and late-night shifts, she was used to boardrooms and power lunches, but somehow fate had thrown them together in this tiny cabin with no way out. The fire crackled, casting shadows that danced along the walls, and the silence between them grew heavier with every passing second. Then, leaning closer with a hesitant smile, she whispered, "Can I slip under your blanket?" His heart skipped a beat, and he froze, unsure how to respond. The storm outside raged on, but inside, something more unpredictable was building. Who were they really when stripped of their everyday roles? Could this forced closeness lead to understanding or chaos? And more importantly, what would happen next, alone in the cabin with no one else around? One choice could change everything, but neither of them knew if they were ready. You won't want to miss what happens when the walls close in and secrets start to surface. He set the mug down, trying to steady his racing thoughts. It wasn't just the storm or the isolation, it was everything that had led him here. He was a single dad, used to keeping life simple, juggling bills, work, and bedtime stories. Relationships weren't part of his routine, there was barely enough time for himself, let alone anyone else. Yet, here she was, the CEO who seemed to command every room she entered, sitting just a few feet away, looking vulnerable in a way he hadn't expected. She shifted slightly, wrapping her arms around her knees, and he noticed the exhaustion in her eyes. Behind the polished exterior and confident tone was someone human, someone who worried, someone who had her own fears. He remembered reading about her achievements, turning a struggling company into a powerhouse, negotiating million-dollar deals, and always staying in control. But the storm had stripped that armor, leaving her just another person trying to get through the night. Outside, the wind slammed against the windows again, rattling the wooden frames. He could hear the branches scraping the roof, the snow piling up like a wall between them and the rest of the world. The silence pressed against him, and the weight of the moment grew heavier. He wanted to ask questions, to understand why she was here, but every word felt dangerous, loaded with unspoken tension. Could they trust each other in this unexpected confinement? And as the fire flickered, casting uncertain shadows, the answer felt as unpredictable as the storm outside. Something was about to change, but neither of them knew exactly how or when. He finally spoke, his voice low, careful. "You didn't have to come here if it was just a storm." She shrugged, but her eyes betrayed a flicker of anxiety. "I needed to get away, from everything. From work, from expectations. I thought I could handle it alone, but then the snow trapped me here." The admission hung in the air, raw and unexpected. He leaned back, studying her. In his world, there was no room for pretense, life was messy, loud, and real. And yet, here was someone who had mastered control in every aspect of her life, admitting she couldn't control the one thing that mattered most right now, the storm and the uncertainty. The contrast made him uneasy, yet strangely curious. Outside, the wind rattled again, louder this time, as if the forest itself were eavesdropping. His mind wandered to his kids, alone at home with a babysitter, unaware of the tension building in this cabin. He wondered what she would think if she knew he carried that weight every day, the constant balancing act, the fear of failing them. Could she even understand that world? She shifted closer, the blanket draped over her shoulders, and he felt a surge of conflicting emotions. Part of him wanted to retreat, to maintain distance, but another part, a quieter, more impulsive part, wanted to reach out. The storm outside mirrored the storm between them. Unspoken truths and hidden vulnerabilities pressed against the walls of the cabin, threatening to spill over. Could two people from such different worlds navigate this unexpected closeness, or would the tension consume them first? The fire crackled, sending sparks dancing across the room, but the warmth did little to ease the tension. He could feel her eyes on him, and every glance seemed to carry a question he wasn't ready to answer. The storm outside had grown wilder, snow slamming against the windows with a force that made the cabin tremble. It was as if nature itself was conspiring to trap them together, forcing them to confront what neither of them had planned for. She shifted again, closer than before, and he felt a flutter of unease mixed with something he couldn't name. Words hovered on the edge of his tongue, dangerous in their honesty, but he swallowed them down. He wasn't used to vulnerability, and he certainly wasn't used to someone else pushing against his walls. And yet, the intensity in her gaze made him question how much longer he could hold back. Memories of his life as a single dad flickered through his mind, the sleepless nights, the endless responsibilities, the quiet moments of joy with his children, and he realized how rare this feeling of raw, uncertain connection was. She represented a world he didn't belong to, a life that seemed untouchable, yet here she was, stripped of all pretenses, and now dependent on the same fragile shelter as him. The wind screamed outside, rattling the windows, and for a moment, it felt like the cabin itself might collapse. Every creak of the wood, every flicker of the fire, heightened the unspoken tension between them. Neither knew what would happen next, and the uncertainty pressed down like the storm itself. In that suspended moment, everything was possible and nothing was certain. Just as he was about to speak, a loud crack echoed from the far side of the cabin. The wooden floor beneath the storage shelves groaned ominously, and a stack of firewood tumbled to the ground with a crash. Both of them jumped, hearts pounding, eyes wide in the sudden chaos. The storm outside seemed to grow louder in response, as if daring them to face the next challenge. He moved toward the fallen wood, but she stopped him, her hand on his arm. "Wait, there's something else." Her voice trembled slightly, and he noticed a tension he hadn't seen before. In the shadows behind the shelves, a faint outline of a broken window revealed itself. Snow had started drifting inside. Panic flickered across her face, but she didn't explain why it mattered. His mind raced. He realized the cabin wasn't as secure as they thought. What had seemed like a safe shelter from the storm was now vulnerable, and the isolation that had drawn them together suddenly felt dangerous. Every instinct screamed that this wasn't just about the storm anymore. Then, a sound from the woods, a sharp, deliberate crack, not like the trees bending in the wind, made them both freeze. Someone, or something, was out there, watching the cabin. The single dad's protective instincts surged, but he could see the flicker of fear in her eyes. The CEO, usually unshakable in the boardroom, now seemed humanly fragile, relying on him in a way he never expected. The cabin had shifted from a place of tension and curiosity to a crucible of uncertainty. With the storm raging outside and the unknown threat lurking just beyond the walls, every choice mattered, and every second brought them closer to an outcome neither of them could predict. The single dad moved quickly, blocking the broken window with his coat and pushing the firewood against the draft. She followed, her hands trembling but steady, eyes sharp with adrenaline. Outside, the storm howled like it wanted to tear the cabin apart, but inside, their focus narrowed to one thing: survival. For the first time, the walls between them, the differences in their lives, their assumptions, their fears, seemed to disappear, replaced by the raw need to protect each other. Minutes felt like hours as they worked together, securing the cabin. Every crack of wind made them jump, every shadow in the flickering firelight set their hearts racing. Yet amid the fear, there was a strange comfort in their partnership. They were no longer just a single dad and a CEO, they were two humans, facing the storm side by side.